So I know I got a lot of new preppers that are learning about prepping and watch my channel. So today I'm giving you 10 tips for new preppers. Hey everybody, welcome back. So today I have 10 tips for you folks who are just getting started out prepping. Some things that you can do, some are actually free, that you can do and get yourself better set up for prepping in the right direction. Some of us have made mistakes along the way. I know I have when I first started prepping back in '98. I've been doing this a while. It's kind of scary. So you can benefit from the knowledge of some of the mistakes that we've made over the years. And for you folks down below in the comments, if you've made mistakes, if you come up with great ideas, if you've been prepping for ages, feel free to leave them down there. You know, if you see something that I'm doing wrong, feel free to leave it down there. So if we're going to start off first with the most basic, simple tip, and again, everything here is kind of a representation. This isn't all the food that I have stored or all the water. The first thing you want to do is start storing water. Okay, I got a water jug back there. It's half empty, of course, because I use some. But water is technically more important than food, okay? You can survive 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. So water is your most critical prep to store, okay? You're going to go through it faster than you think. You don't have to just buy bottled water. You can collect your own, store it in collapsible containers or barrels if you can find a good deal on them. 55-gallon drums with food in them, food-grade ones, the blue ones, work great as long as you clean them out really, really well. And I need to do a video on that, as a matter of fact. You can store these for long periods of time in your garage or your basement. It's very easy to do. Just fill them up and put them somewhere. Have a way to also get that water out of that 55-gallon drum, because let me tell you, once it's full, it's really heavy. Another tip with water is never store water in old milk jugs. I know it's tempting. It looks like, oh, that's a great idea. You're never going to get all the milk out. It's going to get moldy, nasty, and disgusting. And if you store it in heat, they tend to degrade very quickly, so you'll have a mess in about a year. They'll pop open and spill everywhere. Let's move on to the next item. Store more than just canned food. There's this idea that a food pantry has to be loaded with canned food and nothing else. You need to have a variety of canned, dried, freeze-dried, and other food to diversify your diet. Otherwise, you're going to get pretty bored with canned foods. Plus, canned foods can be high in sodium, and that's not good long-term. And so can some of these freeze-dried foods. So that's when you start looking into things like Thrive or freeze-dried wholesalers. They offer a diverse kind of thing, and you can really do a lot of stuff with them. You've seen me make, really good meals out of basic ingredients, and there's nothing in them. So check into some freeze-dried food as well when your budget allows it. If all your budget allows is canned food right now, hey, you're doing better than 99% of the world. So store what you can store, but try to diversify your diet. Also, store only what you eat. Don't store something and say, if I'm hungry enough, I'll eat that. Let me tell you, I threw out a can of sardines when I moved here that I bought in '98. I moved here in 2003. I'm never going to eat those sardines. So you definitely don't want to store stuff that you don't think you're going to eat. Let's move on to the next item. There's more to prepping than just how much you store. You're going to need skill and knowledge and training and some hands-on experience. You want a nice library of reference material stashed away as well. Books are very important, so are skills. That's why I have my knife and my ferro rod out there. Can you start a fire with a ferro rod? Can you start a fire with a flint and steel? Do you know how to build a shelter out of raw materials? These are skills you can practice on your own. Heck, you can even practice them in your backyard. If you live in an apartment building, you can go off to a wooded area and practice this kind of stuff. You don't need to videotape it like I do. You can just go and practice. And that's the whole idea. Get some books. If you find a good article online, this is something that I've done. If you find a good article online, print it out. Get yourself a 3-ring binder, get a hole punch, put it in there. You're not always going to have the computer to rely on. Mr. Google isn't going to be there when the power goes out. So that's a good idea to get yourself set up that way. So you're going to need a lot more than just stuff. Don't forget about hygiene and sanitation. We all know how important this was back last March. Okay? Nobody could find any. Things like soap, things like Clorox wipes. We're not just talking for pandemic use. We're talking for everyday use. It's really, really important to keep yourself stocked up on hygiene items. You have to stay clean in order to avoid being sick. Getting sick during a survival situation when hospitals are either closed or overrun could end up killing you. A good first aid kit with some antibiotic cream, some peroxide, some things that can clean wounds. Very, very important. Many, many years ago, when I first started watching YouTube and not doing YouTube, Patriot Nurse had a video that basically came to the conclusion that most people are going to die from a stupid cut on their finger that's going to get infected, get in their bloodstream, and kill them. This is where that becomes so important. During a disaster, you don't want to be running around like a chicken with your head cut off looking for a Band-Aid. Have the stuff ahead of time. All right, let's move on to the next item. Don't forget about your pets. This is my little guy RV here. Make sure you got food and water, medical supplies if you need it, and anything else you'll need for your pets. You got to make that decision now. You're certainly not going to eat your pets, and you're certainly not going to abandon them. So it's a good time to store what you need for your pets. Cat, dog, whatever. I think my cat's a little confused about being up on the counter. Anyway, that's a good thing to start thinking about now. Do you have enough water? Do you have enough food? Their treats, their medications. Definitely want to think about your pets. All right, number 6. Don't tell everyone about your preps. Yeah, I know. I'm a horrible example of this because I'm on YouTube. But you get the idea. Even I don't go out there and say, hey, here's my address. Come visit me, Have a little bit of decorum when it comes to talking about what you have. You don't want to advertise what you have when the disaster strikes. You're going to have a line of people at your door that you can't help. Even some family members that might be far away and irresponsible and not bother prepping, they'll show up and guilt you into giving you their stuff. So you can't save everyone. You can't fix everyone. Just keep your plans within your family and a select group of trusted individuals, and teach your children, if you have kids, not to go to school and say, hey, Daddy's got a big gun collection, or Mommy stores tons of food in the pantry. These are things you kind of keep to yourself and keep private. It's not that we don't want to help, it's that we can't store enough to help everybody. And your main goal is survival for yourself and your family. So let's move on to the next one. Now this is one that tends to get overlooked a lot. This is number 7. Try to stay in shape. Now, I'm not talking about going out there and trying to become the next Arnold Schwarzenegger or being ripped and having, bodybuilder type body. I'm talking about, can you run a quarter of a mile down the road without dying, This is the kind of thing that I find preppers kind of overlook. And a lot of times you're going to find yourself exhausted after just one day of dealing with a disaster. Walking from place to place, carrying supplies, repairing damaged roofs, windows, houses. It's all going to wear you out fast if you're not in shape. It's easier to get in shape than you think. Like half an hour of walking down your street and back could make a huge difference. If you're not in shape now, if you have medical issues that keep you from being in shape, try and see what you can do to make yourself stronger. I go to the gym as often as I can. Maybe 5 days a week, 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. I don't do a ton of heavy stuff. I'm not, Mr. Buff. I just want to make sure that I can run, I can lift heavy objects, and I'll tell you, it's made a difference. I noticed when loading groceries in my vehicle, since I've been working out the last few years, I've lost some weight, and I also noticed that my upper body strength is much better, because I have a bad back. I had a back injury when I was younger, and I have a bad back, and I can lift stuff without dying now. I used to be able to lift 50, I'd lift 50 pounds and be like, oh, ow, now I can do it without dying. So it's definitely a good thing to think about. Have a plan to try to get yourself in better shape. If you are in shape, if you walk every day, if you bike, there's so many easy ways to do this. You can buy a couple of kettlebells at home and do exercises. You don't need to spend a fortune. You don't even need to join a gym. You can sit in your living room and do sit-ups and walk your neighborhood. No big deal. So it's a very important point. Let's move on to number 8. Number 8 is have a plan for getting home. And this bag here is what I'm working on, a very minimal get-home bag. You saw me review this bag. I even forget what country it's from right now, but you saw me review it recently. It was like $6. A lot of people forget that disasters don't wait for you to get home. They can happen while you're at work, at school, traveling, dropping your kids off at the mall. Whatever you're doing, they can happen. So have a plan for getting home. Have some supplies maybe you keep in your vehicle or keep in your desk or maybe you carry to work every day. I know when I lived in a big city in New York City, I had a bag with me. Now granted, wasn't a prepper at all. I didn't have tons of food and water in there, but I might have a snack. I might have a couple bottles of water in there along with change for my clothing because where I worked we had a locker room where we could change. So have a plan, have some supplies if you have to walk home from work, and no alternative routes to get home if those roads are blocked. If you're in a vehicle, and you work 20 miles away, you should have 4 or 5 different ways you could get home, even ways that might take you off roads so that you can get home safely in an emergency if everything's blocked off or if there's some kind of civil disturbance or unrest or whatever. Have a plan and then have another one back behind it just so you're safe. Also, do you have a meeting place for the rest of your family? Let's say huge disaster strikes. We'll say, 9.5 earthquake in California. There's nothing left where your house used to be. So little Joey comes home from school and sees a leveled place, and he goes walking to his friend's house. And then your daughter comes home from school, sees a leveled thing, and she waits there. Well, your wife comes home, picks her up, sees a leveled thing, and goes off to the store to buy supplies. Well, where are you guys going to meet up? Cell phone service could be down, and we rely a lot on cell phones. You may not have ever gotten that ham license you wanted everybody in your family to get. So have a meeting place. Have a meeting place that preferably can't be destroyed by an earthquake, a flood, a fire, whatever. And have a couple. If you live in a wildfire area and you say, our meeting place is on the corner of this street and this street, and there's a huge fire there and the cops are keeping you away, well, have another meeting place. Have a couple designated meeting places and keep them in order. So there's meeting place 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, let's go with number 9. And number 9 is pretty important. Test everything yourself. I was really guilty of this back before I started doing YouTube. I would buy a shiny new survival object and want to keep it nice and fresh for the apocalypse and never try it. And I found out that a lot of the items I tested really weren't that great. And I ended up throwing them out or selling them off or whatever. And I got better stuff. Don't assume the tools you have will work properly when you need them. You have to try them out. Also, don't just go to the store and buy, like if you're putting together bug-out bags, don't go to the store and buy 4 of the same stove for your family in their bug-out bags, because they may not work. It may not work for you. It may not work for, your son or your daughter or whatever. Buy a product, try it, and then if it works good, then you can feel free to buy more of them. The old 2 is 1 and 1 is none deal where, if you have 1 and it breaks, you got nothing. If you've got 2, at least you got a backup. So, always test your products out before you get them. Don't become so focused on one item that, you don't bother looking at anything else at all. And a good example of this, this is something that maybe 10 years ago, before I did YouTube, I would have bought and put away and never used. It's a firebox stove. But as you can see, we watched the video together. I did the video. I tested this thing. I used it, I tested it, and I really, really like it. So you want to make sure you're testing out your gear beforehand so that you're not getting any nasty surprises when you go to use it. That was the main reason I started this channel, okay? To start testing out some of my own gear, and I found out, whoa, this kind of stinks. I want to get something better. And I'd watch other reviews, and I'd do reviews on stuff, and then it grew to what it is today. And I thank all you guys for that, because we're almost at 100,000. Can you believe that? So anyway, don't buy anything based on reviews on YouTube. Even mine. What works for me may not work for you. It's nice to do a review and say, hey, let me check that product out. Or, wow, I really like that. I'm going to buy one and try it. But don't think that every single person on YouTube is an expert at everything. Even myself, sometimes I get a product and I review it. And, it may not work for you. You may not like it. You may have something better. So don't just buy stuff on word of mouth and reviews. Really want to get hands-on things and do them yourself. All right, let's go to the most important, number 10. All right, number 10. The end of the world isn't tomorrow. Okay? Pace yourself. Don't freak out. When you buy things compulsively or, you're freaking out, you're going to buy things you don't need. You're going to store things you don't want. Yeah, okay, technically the end of the world could be tomorrow, but the odds are very, very small, okay? If you always think the end of the world is the next day, or, if you follow certain news boards and they're like, this is it, this is the end, tomorrow, you're going to buy stuff you don't need, you're going to panic, you're going to make bad decisions, okay? Be prepared, but enjoy life. Don't become so focused on prepping for doomsday that you forget to enjoy what you have today. And keep in mind that doomsday may never come. There may never be another huge disaster in your lifetime, but your preps may come in handy for smaller emergencies, like, say, medical or a bad injury. I know when I cut my finger, I was sure glad I had a good load of medical supplies. Injury, some kind of injury. Do you have a cane, do you have a walking stick if you injure your leg? Power outages, or even bad weather and storms. I mean, with a basic preparation, people in Florida, when there's a big storm coming, heck, they're set, even a basic bit of food and water, they're doing pretty good. So, don't make everything about, tomorrow is the end of the world. I've gotten kind of jaded over the years reading so many survival boards and watching so much survival video. And, I take everything in. I'm not a person that just ignores stuff if somebody says there's bad things on the horizon. I take it all in and I process it and I'm like, okay, there's a possibility of that. But do I have it covered? Yes. Or, oh, I don't have it covered. Somebody says, a nuclear disaster is imminent. Well, I've got preps for that. I've got NBC gear. I've got gas masks. I've got radiation detectors, dosimeters, all that stuff. I'm ready for it, but it doesn't consume my everyday thoughts. So that's something really, really important. So that's number 10. Those are 10 tips that I can come up with. I hope this guide can help some new preppers down the right path. If you are an experienced prepper, perhaps you can add some of your ideas or mistakes you made in the past in the comments below. I know we have a lot of new subscribers on the channel. Some may be just getting kind of interested in prepping. Some may be, well, not really sure, should I, or, oh, it looks expensive. It doesn't need to be expensive. I've done countless videos on taking 20 bucks a week and going to the dollar store and stocking up on food. And again, yes, it's canned food, but it's better than nothing. At least you'll have food. We saw in March how quickly food and basic supplies can disappear from the market overnight. I watched 1 week, I went to shop and toilet paper was in low supply. 3 days later, I went to shop and there was no canned food. And then 2 days later, the whole refrigerator section and the whole food aisles were wiped clean in my Walmart here. And we're only a town with like about 36,000 people in it. So it could happen overnight. So those are my ideas for you. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to check out our links down below. Like I said, we got freeze-dried food down there, both from Thrive Life and from our Food for Patriots link, which is preparewithiridium.com, and freeze-dried wholesalers. Lots of good stuff there. Lots of good, plain food that you can turn into delicious meals on your own. Don't forget to check out our Amazon store. Our Amazon affiliate store is down below. I'm starting to move around some of the stuff in that to give it a little more of a feel, a little more organization. So don't forget to check that out. And I thank you guys for watching. Stay safe and stay prepared.